Injuries continuing to pile up for Iowa football. Erick All, tight end Erick All, confirmed to be out for the season. He's the second big-time tight end. Has been injured this year and is now done for the year as he joins Luke Lachey on that list. We'll talk about the impact for the Iowa offense. Who does Iowa turn to at that position specifically? Addison Estringa's health is in question as well. And plus, can the passing offense get any better without tight ends? That's been a huge problem. I mean, Iowa's ability to get other players, other positions involved other than the tight end spot in the passing game has been an issue in recent years. We'll talk about that in just a second. But first, I want to thank our sponsor, Iowa Floor Covering. They've got tile, including tile showers, carpet, and more. Check out all their great products. Visit iowafloorcovering.com or give them a call, and they can help you figure out what you need for your project, for your home. 515-379-7000. Again, that's 515-379-7000. They're located right in the heart of central Iowa, down in the metro area. Again, visit iowafloorcovering.com. So the news that broke officially on Tuesday, Iowa confirming that Erick All is indeed done for the season. It sounds like an ACL tear for Erick on a tough-looking play against Wisconsin. I was up in Madison for the game in Camp Randall this past weekend, and yes, Deacon Hill kind of led him into a bad spot, and the Wisconsin defender took a low shot at Erick. I'm not saying it was a dirty hit, but it's sure not a hit you want to see, and it's a hit you would hope could be avoided, but it is what it is. In fact, Nico Ragaini, the commentators, I watched this game back later in the week, and the commentators made a point of bringing out how Deacon led Nico into a similar position later in the game. And I guess that's the one thing I would say from a schematic standpoint, from a quarterback's perspective, he's got to do better not leading his players, not leading his receivers, his tight ends into precarious situations. I don't think they put Luke Lachey in a great spot on the play where he got injured. If you go back and watch that play, probably could have been avoided. You're not blaming Cade McNamara or Deacon Hill for those guys' injuries, but that is part of the game and part of learning how to play quarterback at this level, not leading your receivers and tight ends into dangerous situations. So obviously, health of everybody else at the tight end group is going to be really important. Heading into the season, we talked about how deep this room was, and I made the comment that it's probably the deepest position on the team, offense or defense, and I would stand by that looking back at the beginning of the season. Luke Lachey was their leading receiver when he went down a couple of weeks into the year, 3 weeks into the year to be exact, and then Erick All took over as the leading receiver. Now he's done. Iowa's so tight end heavy. Who do they turn to? Addison Estringa was out this past week. It sounds like he's got a chance at being back. He's a true sophomore. If you don't know anything about Addison Estringa, we talked to Addison Estringa before he got to Iowa, a couple of years ago. Check out that interview. I'll throw it up here in the corner for you to click on. Addison, a really good kid from Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. Would have been nice to see him playing back in his home state last weekend, but they're going to need him moving forward. Now, they will have a bye after Minnesota, so can Iowa survive without Addison and get to the bye so he gets an extra week of recovery time? That's possible. Perhaps that's also the plan for guys like Deshaun Lee and TJ Hall on defense. But I expect Addison to be the number one tight end when he returns. I've always been high on Steven Stelianos. He's a big-bodied tight end. You look at him, and he's a guy who you can see Iowa using on goal line packages. They have done that. I mean, they've gone 4 to 5 deep even with health. And now without those top two guys, Lachey and All, we're going to see more Johnny Pescuzzi. We're going to see more Zach Ortworth, young man out of the St. Louis area. And again, if Addison Estringa is healthy, we're going to see more of him as well. Grant Leaper's on the roster. You got a guy like Cale Vanderbush who's on the roster. They've got some young tight ends there that, if push comes to shove, they may have to play. Again, those young guys can play in up to 4 games and maintain that year of eligibility, basically take a redshirt year, although most guys aren't going to stick around for 5 or 6 years anymore. Zach Ortworth, I'm guessing, is burning that red shirt. I haven't tracked how many games he's played in, but my guess is if you look back at special teams, he's already played in more than 4 games, I would guess. I don't have that officially, and my guess is that's the plan, especially with the injuries, to continue to play Zach Ortworth. Obviously, the issues with getting the ball to the receivers, that needs to be remedied somehow. And all I can say about that, not being a play caller myself, not being an OC, but having a relationship with a guy who understands offense like Coach John Patterson, is Iowa's just got to figure out a way to scheme for these receivers and get them the ball more. And it may be through an exotic or two. It may be through waste downs. And I know people who listen to this channel are probably tired of me saying that, But Iowa has built up so much tendency on certain downs and distances and formations that if they can break tendency, it's an opportunity to get some guys in one-on-one coverage, perhaps use that big arm of Deacon Hill's. I thought he was better. Looking back at the tape on Saturday, I thought Deacon Hill was better as it relates to accuracy. They did not ask him to throw the ball a lot. I still think he zeroes in on a target, just like Spencer Petras did a lot during his career, like we saw from Cade McNamara earlier this year. They've got a lot of improvement to be made with quarterback development. We understand that. But play to the guy's strengths. And obviously, he's got a big arm. We keep hearing about that. So perhaps it's time to utilize some waste downs and some shots down the field, especially with the tight ends not being as much of a factor. Now, based on what I've heard and seen, my guess is if they get Addison to string it back, they're going to really target him probably more than anybody else on this team. Maybe Johnny Pascuzzi mix into the fray, and perhaps we do see like a Zach Ortworth. Remember, Sam Laporta got in as a young man. I believe he was either a freshman or a sophomore when he first started seeing action on the road at Northwestern several years back and made a couple of nice plays in that game. So it is possible for young tight ends to come in, understand the system, understand what Abdul Hodge, Brian Ferentz, and this coaching staff is wanting out of them, and maybe fill those gaps. Now, they're not going to be able to fill the gaps to the point of what we saw from Erick All, Luke Lachey, but if the run game can keep going, that can be the bread and butter. But then sprinkle in the receivers. They got to get Seth Anderson involved. I don't even know what to say about Caleb Brown. At this point, I'd like to say, hey, let's get Caleb Brown involved, but they haven't done it through 7 games. Whether that's on Caleb, whether that's on Iowa, it seems to be the common denominator and a pattern that Iowa has problems keeping receivers engaged and utilizing receivers. So although I know the rumors are out there that Caleb Brown maybe did something to lose out on an opportunity, I'd like to think, based on common sense, looking at the track record of the Iowa offense, that the Iowa offense probably had something to do with his irrelevance so far this year. But maybe that can change. Iowa is 6-1. Bottom line is they're in control for the West. They've got a chance at the playoff. Call me crazy, whatever. They win out. They got a chance at the college football playoff, and they may get creamed. And in fact, they probably will. They probably will get creamed if they play in the college football playoff. They may get creamed in the Big Ten championship game. But you can worry about the future all you want. I have shared those concerns of mine moving forward, how Iowa continue to win games this way, but they can continue to win games without Erick All, without Luke Lachey, without Cade McNamara. Yes, they've been decimated by injury. Right now, they're not real deep at defensive back. It sounds like TJ Hall is out again this week. Deshaun Lee's got a chance to come back. So they're not going to be utilizing Cooper DeJean on offense like a lot of us fans want, even though they probably weren't going to do that anyways. If there was any chance of that happening, they're not going to do it with that little of cornerback depth. But they can keep winning football games the way they're winning football games. And they've had injuries at tailback as well, as long as they stay healthy up front. That would be the one thing that could send this thing, I think, spiraling, is if they start dealing with major injuries to guys like Logan Jones, guys like Mason Richmond, guys like Connor Colby. The good news is they should have some depth up there because they've had plenty of bodies working into the fray over the last couple seasons. But figured I'd just kind of give some dialogue based on the news that Iowa's losing Erick All. It's not time to panic, not based on the schedule, not based on how Iowa was playing anyways, but the tight ends are so heavily involved. Expect a large dosage of a string if he's healthy, Stylianos, certainly Pascuzzi, and potentially a young guy like Zach Ortworth moving forward, specifically this weekend, going up against a really good tight end who's kind of had a down start to his year, Brevin Spanford at Minnesota. So, of course, we'll be here throughout the week, continuing to give you coverage. I'll have a podcast dropping, I believe, later today with an interview of a future Iowa football athlete. So great stuff on the way. Be sure to hit that like button on the way out, subscribe, turn the bell on for notifications, donate to the channel if you appreciate the content and want to support the cause. You can find links to do so in the description below. We'll talk to you very soon.